is evolved to 1.01, whereas the Israeli occupation of Palestinian land and its human rights abuses committed herein are a major source of conflicts. 1.02, whereas Palestinians in the West Bank have lived since 1967 under Israeli military occupation that subjects them to many human rights abuses, including use of their land for the purpose of building Israeli settlements, limited access to their land and to each other on account of the role of the separation war on its part of Palestinian territories, systematic displacement into small, non-contiguous geographic enclaves separated by barriers and checkpoints, gross inequality in the amount of water allocated to them, severe and arbitrary travel restrictions, limited access to holy sites, segregated roads, demolition of their homes, destruction of their crops by settlers, and the Israeli army and arbitrary arrest even of children. 1.03, whereas the Israeli government repeatedly subjects Palestinians in Gaza to military attacks using deadly force, has destroyed Gaza's infrastructure and economy, and has imposed severe limits on personal entry on the entry of products essential to Gazans' well-being, has imposed limits on fishing in violation of international law and the Oslo Accords, and has imposed strict control of electronic communications as well as of air and sea space around Gaza. 1.04, whereas the Israeli government has annexed Palestinian East Jerusalem and separated it from the West Bank and Gaza and continues to appropriate Palestinian property. Therefore, Jewish-only settlement and to deny building permits to Palestinians as well as to revoke the residency rights of many of Jerusalem Palestinian citizens. 1.05, whereas the Israeli government refuses to end but rather has sought to solidify its occupation of territory conquered in the 1967 war, leading to numerous illegal actions and human rights abuses by the Israeli government and military in defiance of United Nations resolutions, and refuses to respect the Fourth Geneva Convention as called for by the International Court of Justice in its opinion concerning the separation wall in the occupied Palestinian territory. 1.06, whereas Caterpillar sells specially manufactured boulders, D9 bulldozers to the Israeli military. These bulldozers are equipped with armor and weapons and are used as weapons of warfare to demolish Palestinian homes, entire villages, and agricultural land. One of these armored bulldozers was responsible for crushing to death every Green University student Rachel Curry in 2003, while she stood in front of Palestinian home to prevent its demolition. 1.07, whereas G4S, one of the world's largest private security firms, provides security services and equipment to prisons where Palestinians are jailed and often tortured. Palestinian prisoners are frequently held in administrative detention, meaning they have not been charged with a crime, have not had a trial, and are often denied legal representation. Since the year 2000, Defense of Children International reports that over 8,000 Palestinian children have been held in Israeli jails and prisons. Many of these prisons are managed by G4S. 1.08, whereas Hewlett Packard Corporation provides identification systems that differentiate by religion and ethnicity. between Palestinians and Jewish Israelis. HP monitors at military checkpoints restrict Palestinians' freedom of movement, including preventing them from working, going to school, or seeing family members, like the racist passbooks in apartheid South Africa. These IDs have a harmful impact on Palestinian life and economy well-being. 1.09, whereas Motorola Solutions is profiting from the Israeli military occupation throughout providing communication systems to the Israeli military. In addition, the company provides electronic surveillance systems to the settlements that are constructed on Palestinian land in violation of international law, signed agreements, and the Fourth Geneva Convention. 1.10, whereas Portland State University in 2015 adopted a socially responsible investment stance in which the endowment pursue investment that fit within the criteria of environment, social, and governance. Therefore, be it resolved, 2.1, be it resolved that the Associated Students of Portland State University, ASPSU, calls on Portland State University to divest any holdings in the following companies that have earned funds to profit from human rights violations against Palestinian civilians by the Israeli government. Caterpillar, Motorola Solutions, Hewlett Packard Development Company, LP or its successors, and G4S, plus its subsidiaries. 2.2. Be it further resolved that ASPSU calls on the university to put in place an international investment screen which prohibits investment in any company that provides weapons or equipment used for violent acts that target either Israel or Palestine civilians, provides equipment used for the displacement of Palestinians from their homes, or supplies equipment used for the construction or maintenance on the separation wall in the West Bank and Jerusalem. Thank you so much. And now I'll give my time to Muhammad to speak about this resolution. And I will need to drink all of this water now.
There should be a clipboard in the operating. Can you pass that down this way, please? Yeah.
Hi everyone. My committee voted on this resolution and it passed. The main reason why we passed this resolution is because we constated that there is human rights violation happening and we don't want our mission to support these activities that these companies are engaging in these countries. And also, these are international companies, so they can be essentially so if I don't stand against these companies and their activities are engaging in this country, if they move to my country or do something similar to my country, I mean, it would be like a kind of hypocrisy to support it when it's happening to other countries and not support and be against it when it's happening to my country, if that makes sense.
And to add on that, I have been involved in this resolution and divestment since last term. And while working on this, I have heard a lot of concerns, and I have heard from both sides who support or disagree with this. And I have sat in person with people who disagree with this, and I have listened to them like individually for like 1 hour or 45 minutes. So I can say that I have heard a lot of arguments about it, and it is a decision, like personally and as a committee, we have come to this decision through a longer process and after listening to so many perspectives. And some people were saying why you're targeting or focusing only on this issue and not other human rights violations that's happening in all over the world. Well, one reason at least is because we as students, we know that part of our money goes to those companies that support those human rights violations. So we know about it. I mean, we can work only within the possible for us, within our boundaries. For us as students, I mean, we're not saying we're going to resolve the issue of human rights in the world. It's just a small part that we can do. And we know that there is money that goes to, it's that simple, there is money from students that goes to companies that supports human rights violations. And whether that was in Palestine or any other region in the world, we will stand with that. Some people were saying that is, they took it in like in different, they understand the resolution or the divestment in another way. They said it's kind of racism because it's targeting Jewish. Well, no. You can see, and this issue in general, we see a lot of Jewish people who stand with the human rights for Palestinians, and it's not like a religious issue, it's a human rights issue, and this is the way we are targeting this problem. We're not going back to the roots of the problem, and it's very deep, and I guess it requires experts to talk about this issue because it's involved in a lot of history and religion and social aspects. But from human rights perspectives and as students representatives in campus, we believe that this is the right decision and the right strategy to be part of the reform in the world and be part of a human rights movement in the world. And now we will leave time for you guys all to talk, and we want to hear from all of you as this is the first reading of this resolution. Thank you.
Members of the body, as this is the first reading, you have a couple of options. If no action is taken, this resolution will automatically become a second reading under old business at the next Senate meeting, which incidentally I believe is the last Senate meeting for this term. Or this can be referred back to committee for changes or modification, and then come back at the next meeting for a second reading with changes. So I will take a seat. I've got 3. Okay. So like.
I was wondering, where PSU invests its money when it comes to these types of multinational companies. Is there like a list of PSU investments with these types of companies? Like that I've heard that there is like a few, but it's not confirmed. But I was wondering if there was like definitive proof to like investment.
In this company?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can answer on that. Well, we know that we have about it, but like I can reveal my time to a member of the audience who can talk specifically about this list because she has experience with it.
Who's the audience member?
Yeah, she's here in the front.
You have 60 seconds.
Okay, no. The answer is that PSU Board of Trustees doesn't make that information public. They haven't, at least, and so it's not known directly if these companies are invested or not. That's why the second part of the resolution is an investment screen, so that that when that's determined, that the PSU will know whether they're invested or not. Then these are the companies that. But no, they don't make that information public, so it's not known.
Resolution, and also I feel as though funds may, or, so if you think about it in the perspective of like, if these funds are being used for this purpose, then we should make a clear stance on this. And if we're not, at least we have like, we have that when it comes to human rights issues, and we're not just blind to it. So I feel like this is a good start, along with the other things we need to like that as well.
Yeah, I think it's endowments. I think it's just to talk about environmental, social, and governance. I think we've been specifically by this have been available since I ran on the divestment agenda or platform at the beginning of the year. That we've been specifically like looking at the environment and the fossil fuel and the social and government as a private prison. One of those companies is already involved in showed that the site and definitely G4S has been its rating has been down because they approved that it has human rights violation along with a couple others. And I want to discuss this document from Thai and the Jewish Student Union on page, it's not numbered, the page that relates to page 3, where it says number 4 G4S, where it says that G4S has no contract with Israel. They do, however, contracts with Lebanon, Jordan, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, and the United Emirates, Oman, Yemen, Egypt, and Morocco. I just want to say that makes me more want to divest. They've been involved in human rights violation against the citizens of these countries, so I strongly support that.
So I think it's worth noting that we do have the PSU strategies which have passed a resolution previously, which is the environmental, social, and governance. And under social, it does specify human rights issues. So a lot of these things are already being looked at. So to take that further, if we are to make resolutions which are largely supposed to be policy-based and more objective apply to things on a more broad scale, if we're to make something issue-specific in the issue of Israel and Palestine, it begs the question how people are going to perceive that rather than what our intentions are. And I think this is already, it's already been passed, these companies are already being looked at, and furthermore, as is already stated, we don't know if we're invested in these companies. So my question is to all of you, is it worth making this issue-specific and potentially placing it very culturally a significant part of our population here at PSU and in the United States in general, and pitting them against each other, whether that's our intention or not, this is going to be the way that it could be perceived, and probably will be as I've talked to municipal people about this. So I think it's very much worth considering that.
Any additional members of the body who wish to speak on this? And then I'm sorry. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. All right, before we get in there, I have myself here. I am curious about the specifics of what we're dealing with here, because I hear a lot of discussion about tuition dollars, and my understanding is that you're dealing with foundation dollars, which are funds from philanthropy or other, not tuition dollars. They're going to be typically philanthropy that is used in endowment form to support scholarships and things like that. Am I misunderstanding where this money is coming from? Because that's the understanding that I have of the money that we're talking about. And additionally, I'm wondering if, as Emily asked about, if there's any additional benefit to like making a specific focus on one area as opposed to a more broad blanket statement about not supporting arms manufacturing, not supporting
like maintaining the university, I don't even want to attend like something that's involved in human rights violations. For international students who are here, or like any students, anyone actually who is part of the university, they should feel comfortable that there's money coming to them or like provided compensation function that is coming from human rights violations.
The same thing you said about Islam PSC, the same thing you said about like other organizations that discuss and like other counts to act and police brutality. The same thing you said about other social justice issues in America, the way franchise people are attacking people in the United States. The government that we want to hold accountable, the institutions we want to hold accountable. So I mean the governments that we want to hold accountable, like internationally do. It's all the same thing. I don't understand like why this is going to be an issue that we can't touch or discuss or evaluate. Like I don't understand why we're having like such sympathy. I don't understand why. I don't understand how this like bring two groups together. This is like explicitly about human rights violations. And if your humanity is not compromised, then I would say legal.
My comment is on the fact that this resolution is very specific on two countries, and I personally that two individual words have been repeated over and over, whereas the word human rights is not specified explicitly as many times as the other words are repeated, which I think takes away, digresses our attention to the main issue of human rights violation. Second thing being the point of one of the companies being Hewlett-Packard, and in the resolution, because it is supposed to be extremely specific, there's no more a company called as Hewlett-Packard at all. They were separated as two different companies, as Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and Hewlett-Packard Inc., which is not included in the resolution, which was duly brought to the notice. And the issue of human rights violation is not very clear. It's more of pinpointing at the other side, whereas I have another document from Nikkei, which talks about Hewlett-Packard as two companies, and the main resolution that is being passed doesn't focus on it. Being a previous worker of the company, I think it's a serious allegation on the previous company that I have worked for, and sufficient documents are necessary because we are claiming something really big. This is not a small issue. It's being brought up in national level, international levels. And it also somewhere I also feel that, however, and also the fact of what is the investment and what are we going to divest from? What do you mean by we are going to divest from these companies? What exactly do we mean by that? And what is the investment that the university is doing in these companies? I don't see any information about those things here. So that's my point on this.
I'm going to make a last call for members of the body to the speakers list, and then I'm going to close it down. Is there anybody else? Yeah. All right, seeing no other hands, we're going to close the speakers list for the body. David?
So, first of all, the sentiment of this resolution is not to attack any community specifically within the university or outside, neither to attack any specific state. It comes with the sentiment of human to supporting our fellow human beings that are in other part of the world. Make sure that not because we are so powerful that we cannot like, speak a little bit in defense of them wherever they are. And also, if we can do something about it, even if it's very small, which is just divest, then why not to do it? And some people mentioned this is a really delicate issue that maybe we should not speak about it because it will make confrontation between groups. Well, in the 1980s, there was the apartheid in Africa, and students were leading that movement. We helped the African apartheid to be dismantled. So this is the right place to speak about it. We are in university, this is where we should talk about it, otherwise we are coming here. And of course, this resolution is not, that's why we are here, to have a discussion and try to like come in a better way, how can we have a better resolution, and this is the beginning. Also, I just want to ask our chair, Jonathan, thank you for sharing today. But I will appreciate if you are going to make a comment about this or say something about it, just make it clear when you are between every speaker, so it's not like a confusing or it seems like bias on your position. Just to make it clear, if you're making a comment.
I'm not aware that I made a comment. I asked 2 questions. Very well, I'll take your word on
And that's it.
that. Mohamedou?
So your second question, can you repeat it, please?
The second question.
Ask 2 questions.
Oh, I was curious about if there's an additional benefit from specifying order of ballot as opposed to kind of a blanket statement about approach to human rights violation or weapons manufacture or something like that. I'm looking for kind of what the driving force behind that specificity is.
Okay, the driving force is the voice of the student that we represent here, like in ASPSU. The reason why we didn't make a single change at this resolution is because it's their voice. We need to hear that first before we decide to make any change to it. This is like what there is no like interpretation of ours in this resolution. It's the student group's voice. And we are only presenting facts in this resolution. So it's not like we're not asking people to be pro-Israelis or pro-Palestinian. We're just asking you, like, based on all this fact that we provided, if you want your money to go to these companies, that's the only thing to like consider here. You don't need to take our the issue. So to like avoid all these questions, we just mentioned it clearly. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Did you have anything else you wanted to say? No, I'm sorry, I didn't even hear the last part. That was good. Yeah, that could also have been a direct response. It wouldn't require to get on the list. So if you're going to direct respond to a question, just let me know.
Okay.
Yeah. Emily, you're the last person.
Okay, I just want to, a lot of people said,
Oh, I'm sorry, I did say it. Thank you. Thank you.
okay, a lot of comments that said that this is specifically about human rights. And again, my question becomes, if it's specifically about human rights, then why are we making this issue specific? Because as a body representing a very diverse campus, we have a responsibility to represent everyone, regardless of what issues are being brought forward the loudest. And I hear them and we respect them, and obviously we're addressing them. But I think the fact that these issues are already these companies are already being looked at under ESG strategies that were passed, and the fact that those cover globally what we're invested in as human rights, which there are a ton of human rights violations around the world. Let's not be mistaken about that. So to make this specifically about a place in the Middle East where people might not have all the facts, when it's already gone through a committee and this body for the ESG strategy, I don't understand why we're making this issue specific. If it's specifically about human rights, there shouldn't be a need to specify certain countries.
Yeah. Well, obviously, there is a focus or there's attention on this issue, not only in PSU, but in all over the world. And there is attention or focus on this because Palestinian people have been oppressed. to stay silent. And I remember posting photos for one of the students who talked about racist issues and about Syrian issues, and their discourse is clearly full of racism. They say we as yours are the racists, and they place their energy here. And we don't wanna be in the same situation here in PSU and avoid talking about this issue just because some people will get sad or will get angry about it. It is not the feelings in general that drive us to take any decisions in life. I mean, in all of the cases, there's gonna be some people who are not in agree with our decision, and there's gonna be some people who will be sad about the decision. But eventually, we take the decision based on the facts, based on what we have from information, and based on what we feel is right as student representatives. And we might be right, we might be wrong, but that's what we currently believe is correct decision. And that's why we voted for it in the committee.
Thank you.
All right. Can make a motion to move to spend 10 minutes to after this here, so you can explain us about more about the
Yeah, the student came out of it. So, I mean, it's just to be clear, we are going to have, as a body, a second opportunity to look at this. The rest of the students here,
Mother Foundation, who was the one who helped to make further resolution about the new condition compass, and he's in class right now. So we just him to give the explanation about it.
so it was my intent to come back for about 10 minutes following the public comment. Is that the time that we have to address it?
Sorry, what?
Following public comment, we'll come back to Mr. Chairman. About 30 minutes. Is that right now?
Yes, coming from.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, operator, that was not, I thought you just got here late from class. All right, so we're going to go Alfredo over the public comment.
So I understand we're discussing the resolution regarding the CBS that we proposed. I'm not quite sure whether that has changed over time. But I'm just gonna quickly talk about what the PSU Foundation does and the economic side of things. The PSU Foundation is the nonprofit that is managing the $5 million endowment that the PSU has. So alumni will contribute to this money. Our tuition, some of that money will go there too. And so this money is managed by JP Morgan, which is Chase, as we all know. That's just a bank that manages the money. The way the bank will manage the $55 million is based on the investment policy statement, which basically overrules how the money is going to be invested. So it would be saying we're going to invest it this way, it could be invested that way. Now, the youth system has a big endowment, so therefore they can take bigger risks. So if you think of, if you have 20 bucks, you're going to invest it very small. But if you have $1,000, then you're going to invest it with a lot more risk. My point being that it is a very complicated process, and because it is a small endowment, then information regarding where exactly we're investing is not available to the public, so therefore I have to contact the PSU Foundation in order to find out what we're actually investing in. So I cannot tell you for sure that we're investing in any of the companies that the VDS movement outlines. However, I can tell you that it's likely that we have 0.5 or 1% of 55 million. Around that area, I would guesstimate. But that would be something that I would have to talk to the PSU Foundation about in order to find out if we actually have any holdings in these 4 companies. Regarding the 4 companies, an ESG statement has been passed through the PSU Foundation, which means that the ESG criteria will be utilized to scan any company, whether it's Apple, whether it's Sears, whichever company we would like. And due to my work here at ASPSU, I got to research the 4 companies that were proposed by VDS. And due to the criteria, 2 of them were upgraded and 2 of them were downgraded, as I last recall, meaning that
with the ESG strategies, if they were applied through the $55 million, 2 of those companies would be divested from, and 2 of them would not be divested from. So that is all the economic side of things that I would like to speak on my behalf, and I guess I can take any questions.
We did spend it. That being done, we're going to move into public comment, which has specifically been moved to this resolution to allow for responses on this resolution. I have Dana Mustafa.
Dana.
Mustafa.
My name is Dana, student here at PSU, and I'm a member of the Student Group United for Palestinian Equal Rights, who put forth this resolution that's in front of you. I'm just going to answer a couple quick questions. So why divest? This is a call from people who are oppressed, collecting support and solidarity. BDS is necessary to pressure the Israeli government non-violently because it consistently refuses to recognize Palestinians' right to self-determination. The human rights violations are clear. You can see all of that in your packets. The companies are directly complicit. The resolution addresses the culpabilities of corporations. Corporations are not people, and the only way that you can feel demonized is if you identify with corporations that are committing these human rights violations. This resolution will be an effective way to make student voices heard on campuses and democratically debate how we can put an end to our university's complicity in human rights violations. Why now? Because PSU is behind the times on this. As a progressive school in a progressive city, it's long past time a resolution like this should be passed here. Right now in Portland, the Methodist Church of the U.S. is even considering a similar divestment resolution. Hundreds of college campuses across the country have adopted similar BDS resolutions, mostly University of California schools, Loyola in Chicago, and many others. So why us? PSU is joining over 100 other universities, churches, labor organizations, and calling for a divestment from these companies in particular. Some of you on the Senate campaigned on a platform for human rights for all. Here's a chance at the end of your term to live up to that promise. Why not make it more generic? This is a call from the Palestinian people and over 200 civil society organizations, and asking Palestinians to be in solidarity. This resolution targets multinational companies that may be in PSU's portfolio, which are committing human rights violations. It does not target any race, religion, or ethnicity of people. The nation of Israel is a geopolitical state and it should be held accountable to follow international law and conventions of human rights. This is for every Palestinian that has been oppressed and targeted using supplies from G4S. Every Palestinian home that has been demolished by Caterpillar. This is for Rachel Corey, from our own Northwest, who has been killed by one of those bulldozers. This is for every Palestinian detained at borders and checkpoints supported by HP technology.
Kelsey Kaplan.
Hello, my name is Kelsey Kaplan. I'm the president of the Jewish Student Union and also in HI, which is the Cultural and Historical Association for Israel, the pro-Israel student group on campus. Behind me are leaders of the Jewish Student Union and HI. We are all pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian, and pro-peace. And we are here today representing the PSU recognized Jewish community and pro-Israel student group. We all care deeply about peace, justice, and human rights in the Middle East. We hope for a better future for all peoples. Palestinians and Israelis deserve to live in freedom, peace, and security together. We actually all prepared speeches based on a resolution that we were given in the past month. Today, when we heard the resolution, we have realized it has changed, so all of our speeches are a little changed as well. While this resolution may have been presented with good intentions, its real-life impact is to spread dehumanizing propaganda about Israel, the Israeli people, and the Israeli society. Tonight, you'll hear from our students who come from a diverse background, ethnic, religious, and political wise. We stand for a just peace for everyone in the Middle East, regardless of race or religion, and that's the reason why we oppose this divestment. We've been repeatedly told tonight, as well as in emails, in meetings, by ASPSU senators, by students, by faculty, that this resolution is just about human rights. However, I'm here to tell you it's not. This resolution includes biased wording favoring one side and demonizing the other with statements that are factually inaccurate and deliberately misleading. Again, some will still argue that this resolution has nothing to do with Israel or the BDS movement on a global basis, and it has nothing to do with the foreign companies committing these human rights violations. If this resolution is truly about the companies, then we strongly urge the Senate to revise and revisit this resolution so that Israel's name and the Jewish state of Israel is not mentioned at all. if these companies really are committing these heinous human rights violations, then let's please agree to all call them out on it. However, that means calling them out in all of the countries that they're violating these human rights, not just Islam. I want to make this clear that I do not believe everyone who supports this resolution or BDS is bigoted or supports every ultimate goal of the BDS movement. Everyone here, I believe, are goodwill people with the full intention of reaching equal peace for both sides. What I know for a fact is that this resolution is a BDS resolution. People of good faith who believe in peace and equality for all should oppose this resolution and work towards a goal of a truly fair solution that works for both the Palestinians and Israelis. Thank you.
Tiernan, thank you. So I was initially going to limit the discussion to a minute and 4 seconds each, but I let the first person go to 2 minutes, so I've extended it out to 2 minutes. When you see this, please be prepared to wrap up. Sure. Thank you.
I'm Tiernan Lee. I'm with Central Students United for Palestinian Human Rights, and I wanted to impress upon the Senate about international solidarity. It's important to understand that the Portland Human Rights Commission also endorsed the divestment of the same 4 companies, and also the Socially Responsible Investment Committee as well. A lot of people ask me why, as a Chinese person, do I support BDS or even Palestine, and it's because of international solidarity, human rights. Human rights, these are human beings, and there's a connection globally because these companies are global companies. I don't have a long speech, but to me, Palestine is an emblem of international solidarity. They are the indigenous people of that land. We're standing on indigenous land. There's an indigenous people all around the world that are subject to suppression and oppression by these companies, and we want to put economic pressure on them to stop.
My name is Ilona Anfanger, and I am the Vice President of the Union. While this resolution asks you to divest funds from a number of specific companies, its primary source is not financial. If you don't believe me, let me just read the words from an official handbook on divestment against Israel on campus. 1. Don't base your measures of success on whether or not divestment passes. Changing American public opinion through education will ultimately have a greater impact than individual schools divesting. 2. Divestment is introduced in North America as a stepping stone toward a broad, comprehensive boycott of Israel. In other words, divestment from a few companies is neither the main goal nor the main impact of this resolution. The real purpose is to push a one-sided view that Palestinian Israel is not perfect. Israel's actions and policies are not immune to critiques, but it's important to know how to critique and whether it's legitimate or not. This resolution itself pushes people to answer a certain question before the debate even starts. We should start asking things like, is Israel actually guilty of all the allegations made in this resolution? Is there any missing context? And what real-life impact would passing this have on the Middle East and the PSU community? BDS sells itself as a movement for justice and human rights, although its true goal is the destruction of Israel and the violation of Jewish rights to self-determination. That's what you will be contributing to if you pass this resolution as is. The BDS movement is a nonviolent movement. However, even using nonviolence, you can create destruction. Israel, like every other country, has its faults, but it does not mean it does not have the right to exist. However, Omar Barghouti, the co-founder of this movement, thinks otherwise. He said, "We oppose a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. The true intentions of the global BDS movement are clear: destroy Israel. Palestinians and Israelis deserve a better future. This resolution, although brought with good intentions, goes against the human rights values. Its underlying message is that Palestinians can't have human rights and dignity without degrading Israeli human rights and making the Jews a stateless people once again. BDS is not about human rights and social justice for all. I ask you to reject this resolution's wording, which forces us to choose one side over the other, and instead help us unite students around a vision of peace, human rights, and self-determination for the Jewish and Palestinian people."
Corey?
I'm Tabrik Khoury. I'm Palestinian Jordanian American. I teach at PSU and I work with the United Nations. So human rights is very much my issue. And why I support the BDS is, I think, very clear. We talk about Israel as a democracy, and I beg to see who can define democracy when it comes to Israel. When it's about human rights, we see that in Israel, some people are treated in human manner, and some people are more equal than others. So this is basically a human rights issue. Somebody raised the issue like, why is this specific? I think because we cannot solve the problems of all the world. I'm against human rights violations anywhere. This is what I do in my classes, in my teaching, in my work, in the street, everywhere. But it's very sad to see that the world is turning the eye to what Israel is doing. It's about power, it's about blind power, and that's why I believe in divestment, because if it hurts in the pocket, then hopefully something will work. I will also emphasize the point on education. A lot of people don't know what's happening, and we do follow the news selectively. We always follow the channels on TV and the radio and everything, and I do this all the time. We all do it naturally because we want to hear what we believe in. We need to educate. It's everybody's responsibility to educate. PSU, like any other institution, probably has its own interests. Students are put in this horrible position of deciding where their hearts belong and where their consciousness belongs. In conscience, I think education would help a great deal. One more thing I would add. This seems to be limited to Gaza, and I don't think it should be limited to Gaza. If it's an occupation, and it is a United Nations resolution, if somebody does not know that, please go back and just read the resolution. It is an occupation, and please give me one reason why a state that is violating human rights has the right to exist. Of course it does. We are not talking people. The Palestinians in Israel don't mind being in whatever we want to call it, as long as they are treated as human beings. Thank you.
Sally Analian.
Sally Anel.
Thank you.
If you could not record me, that would be awesome, just for my
time that I see so much opposition to something like this. And I just want to say that it's not actually common everywhere else in the world, that at least I've been, to be so much in favor of an occupying nation doing this, and this kind of companies doing this, committing this type of violations. So this is why I hope that the Student Senate hears what we have to say here and stands on the side of justice and human rights. Thank you.
Ariel Wyman. Ariel Wyman.
Yeah. I'd just like to say that I was initially offended by this document. I was glad that the senator told me not to be. I am sad that you are offended by our document. I wish I had the right to be offended by yours. It has been argued that there are 4 companies that are in question. This is about 4 companies, not about Israel. It's about human rights, 4 companies. As all of you have a packet that shows Caterpillar, yes, it has sold things to the United States government, such as bulldozers, like the D10, D9. They were shipped to Israel. Israel modified them, the IDF did modify them, and used them to demolish homes, among other things. But there are 2 dealerships for Caterpillar in the Palestinian territories, one in Gaza, one in Ramallah. You can go look at their websites and their testimonies. They provide, such as the government of Indonesia, Caterpillars to build special needs hospitals, special needs schools. There are generators that run the hospitals, the electricity, or if something happens such as an Israeli airstrike, the electricity powered by those Cat diesel generators was what gives the power to the hospital. That's Caterpillar. 2, Motorola. All of you have photos of Palestinian civil police wearing the same radios that the IDF uses. The reason is because they're the only ones that can be encrypted, so people can't jump on the signal and mess with it. Right? They're the ones who do this the best. The Palestinian National Authority went through the United Nations to order more parts and testing equipment. They used Motorola, both sides, to do exactly the same way. G4S has no presence in Israel since March of 2016. They're not in the prisons. They're not there. You can look at it. There's lots of documents. Electric Intifada, which I'm sure all of you know about, specifically says that. And the last company, Hewlett Packard, as the Honorable Senator mentioned, it's the wrong company. You guys are blaming the wrong company, you say, or its successors. If you're going to blame a country for human rights abuses, you might want to actually put the actual name of the company that you want to blame, and not just maybe the other ones. Okay? Thank you very much.
Ned Roche?
My name is Ned Roche, and I'm a former PSU faculty member, and I'm currently active in Jewish Voice for Peace, the fastest growing Jewish peace organization in the country. Jewish Voice for Peace strongly supports this resolution. The great Jewish philosopher Rabbi Heschel said, "In a democracy, some are guilty, but all are responsible." We are all responsible to take a stand against companies that are complicit in the human rights violations of the Israeli occupation. Dr. King reminded us, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I was in Gaza just 2 months after the 2014 Israeli assault. A Palestinian man approached me, offered me a book, and asked me to follow him up a huge mound of debris. At the top, he showed me a picture of a beautiful home, his home, and said we were standing on it. His home and everything in it had been destroyed by a Caterpillar D9 bulldozer. Everything except for the book he gave me. I believe he was saying to me by giving me that book, they can destroy our people and our homes, but they can't kill ideas. Ideas contained in this book, and ideas like freedom, justice, and equality. It is essential that we, through our actions, keep those precious ideas alive. That man and his family should not have had their home destroyed. Companies complicit in those kinds of violations should not receive our investments. And we who have the chance to take a moral stand by supporting this resolution should not miss the opportunity to do so. This resolution has nothing to do with anti-Semitism or making Jews feel unsafe. Why would divesting PSU dollars from companies with despicable human rights records make anyone on campus feel anything but proud? This resolution has everything to do with heeding Rabbi Heschel's words that we are all responsible. Thanks.
Elena Rosenthal? She's not here. Departed. All right. Jennifer Rubino. Thank you.
Hi, you all. My name is Jennifer Rubino. I'm a student here at Portland State University. I'm also the co-president of I and a student of Jewish Student Union. I'm deeply upset by this piece of legislation and the way it ties to BDS. I am a student who stands for peace, justice, and freedom for all people. As a Latina, as an African American, as an indigenous person, I think I have a right to say that I totally don't like oppression anywhere that it might lie, right? Okay. But now that you've been exposed to the truth of what BDS truly is, instead of a movement for human rights, it is a movement to destroy the state of Israel. I would like to further discuss the resolution's inaccuracies and how this ties to the resolution into the global BDS movement. Anti-Israel boycotts are not new. The first boycott happened in 1933 with Palestinian leader and Nazi collaborator Haj Amin al-Husseini organized a boycott against Jewish products. Today, BDS uses misinformation about Israel to advance the same immoral and unjust cause. In fact, this resolution uses the exact same tactics every single BDS resolution out there. We have been told that this resolution is only about 4 companies and their specific human rights abuses. We've been asked repeatedly why we are so opposed to the content and language of the resolution. I would like to ask you a question in return. If this is about human rights, why is every single clause in this resolution a discriminatory statement spewing factual inaccuracies and one-sided narrative against Israel? The answer is because this is a BDS resolution. This is not a benign divestment resolution from 4 companies. This is a planned manipulation of half-truths that lack context. The supporters of this resolution would have you take everything they are saying as fact. But the lack of context and sometimes the complete factual inaccuracies of many claims are disturbing and seem to ignore reality. We're failing basic academic standards if we do not pass a resolution in which the wording is not settled fact. Providing context is the key to dispelling the slanderous claims in this resolution. The Palestinian-Israeli conflict began long before settlements, occupation, and all other issues mentioned in this resolution. Organized violence against Jews began in the region in the 1920s and not stopped since. Thank you.
I hit the letter D.
Hi, I'm just going to speak from here. I didn't know I was going to be here today, so I don't have a grand speech prepared, but I just wanted to speak as a Jewish student, as somebody whose entire extended family lives in Israel, who has a stake in what happens there in the future of that land, not just as a personal, feeling about what's right and wrong, but actually like an immediate, real connection to that place. I don't want other Jews to be speaking for me. I don't want other organizations to be claiming that they are the voice of all Jewish people anywhere, and that Israel is somehow conflated with the entirety of the Jewish people in all of the globe. And for me, as somebody who grew up, I grew up in a family with Zionist, political leanings, and I was raised being told my whole life that I need to support everything that Israel does. Everything that the state acts out is a representation of my identity in some way. And it wasn't until I started getting involved in the BDS movement and started getting involved in social justice movements that I started to learn about the history, the long, long history of Jewish people being on the side of oppressed people everywhere, across the globe, throughout history. And that actually it has been the Jewish people who are involved in the BDS movement that have given me the greatest sense of pride and sense of identity in being a Jew today.
Noah Cohen.
This resolution makes numerous claims about Israel and the conflict without providing context. I believe it is important to acknowledge all aspects of this tragedy before making judgment. While our previous speaker spoke about the conflict's historical context, I would like to bring the conversation into the present. Recent history shows that Israel has made numerous good faith offers to end the occupation and help Palestinians fulfill their right to self-determination. In 2000, Israel offered the Palestinians 97% of the West Bank and all of Gaza as a Palestinian state. The Palestinian leadership refused to even make a counter-offer. Instead, they launched the Second Intifada, an organized campaign of terror targeting innocent Israeli civilians. By the end of this brutal campaign, over 1,000 Israelis have been murdered, 70% of them civilians. This was Israel's terrifying reality between 2000 and 2005. The supporters of this resolution would have you disregard the constant threat of terror that Israel faces. Even today, terror attacks are an everyday occurrence. In the last 10 years, Hamas has fired over 22,000 rockets, deliberately aimed at innocent Israeli civilians. The constant reality of terrorism does not, of course, diminish the struggle of the Palestinians. We would instead like to broaden your understanding of this multifaceted conflict. There are 2 sides to the story, and neither side is without fault. Casting blame and pointing fingers is counterproductive to our ultimate goal for coexistence on our campus and especially in the region. BDS has also been harshly criticized by public figures across the political spectrum. According to New York columnist Thomas Friedman, criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitic, and saying so is vile, but singling out Israel out of all proportion to any other party in the Middle East is anti-Semitic, and not saying so is dishonest. Noam Chomsky, a severe critic of the Israeli government, has said, if you really hate the Palestinians, BDS is a good step because it's going to harm them. Palestinian human rights activist Hassan Reis, Palestinian activist,
I'm sorry, please calm down. Up until this point, I have not been that tightly enforcing time because it was not visible. So most people who have been speaking have gotten between 10 and 30 seconds over. Just because it's displayed, let's not use it to start yelling, please. All right. Jalit.
Hi, my name is David Baum. I'm an Israeli Jew. I'm actually here on a visa, I'm just visiting. I'm a corporate researcher, and I've been doing a lot of work in this country with ESG, SRI professionals. And I've been researching these companies for the last 10 years. So it's kind of a coincidence I'm in town. Use me as a resource. I've worked with an organization called Who Profits from the Occupation, starting 2007 in Israel. Our goal was to bring forth some kind of a people's voice into this conflict and promote peace with justice, working together, Jews and Palestinians. And we found out that corporate interest in the occupation is one of the things that stops us from being able to change things on the ground. So this is about corporations. This is about the power and money of corporations in this country and in Israel that are actually stopping us from changing things and making things better for everybody. It's not about the destruction of my country, my people, my friends, my family, not at all. It's about our power to change things. So we are really tracking the corporations one by one, and we are filing a Freedom of Information Act request to the Israeli government every year to see if they are still complicit. Some of these companies are good companies. HP, by the way, has a very good human rights record, as you said. You're right, both companies. They just recently split. But that's why we really want them to do better. The fact that they are some of the worst violators of human rights in Israel-Palestine, and in other places they are actually good companies, means something. It means that Israel enjoys a total impunity in this country from being measured at the same level as other companies are. If anybody in this country will sell weapons to Palestinian militants, they will go to prison forever. So there is this thing here about singling out Israel, which is unfair to me as an Israeli. It is unfair that ESG and SRI indexes in this country do not look at human rights issues in Palestine. It is unfair that grassroots organizations such as my own have to do this research, and it's not, JP Morgan that does this research. So this is your opportunity, actually, to take action, symbolic action, and tell them, please look at human rights also in Palestine. Also Palestinian rights are human rights. Thank you.
All right, please. Not expelled. Thank you, extended. We've extended the time allocated for public comment. We've had a list of 25 persons and have passed through just over half of that. So it's in the body's hands at this point. Without any interaction, we would move on to the next item.
Motion to extend until second of the list.
All right. What were you doing?
This is a very topical issue. As the person who's writing the meeting minutes for this, I would highly recommend that you listen to the audio if you wish to find out the details about what everyone said. I'm doing my best to capture the message behind everybody, but the audio would be the best way to hear exactly what happened, and I would not hold my words as gospel, given how much is happening over.
Is there any opposition to extending the allotted time to the end of the speaker's list?
Who I talked to wanted peace, whether it was when I was in the West Bank or when I was in Israel. I spoke to a very influential journalist by the name of Khalid Abdul Kamen, a Muslim Arab journalist, and the child of the Palestinian and the Israeli Arab. And basically what he spoke was about the laziness of BDS. It does not just, it only talks about Israel, but does not talk about the other countries that actually go and basically are unjust to the Palestinians. When we talk about Palestinians, we talk about like Lebanon, Egypt, Syria, Jordan. Those other countries do not they have strict laws to let Palestinians in. They do not allow a lot of Palestinians to have careers in those countries, and as well as not receive health care and not the right to own property. But yet this entire BDS resolution is only talking about one country, which is Israel. And I disagree with that. I believe in peace and justice for all, Palestinians, Israelis, and anyone who's dealing with injustice, because it's wrong. And the fact that BDS is only targeting one country is absolutely wrong. I think as college students, we need to be more critical about what we learn and more critical about things that's going on in the world around us. Instead of listening to this short and small piece, we should actually find solutions that's going to be long-term and benefit from everyone. Thank you.
Jenna?
In 2012, while I was a student here at PSU, I had the opportunity to visit Palestine. And that was the first time anyone in my family had ever had the opportunity to visit Palestine after we were expelled in 1967. And while I was at that border, I was questioned, I was detained for 3 hours, I was meant to feel humiliated with my peers who I was traveling with. And this is something that Palestinians face every day, whether they're crossing the border into Israel, whether they're going to school, whether they're going to work, whether they're just going about their daily lives. These companies help enforce the occupation. They violate our rights as humans to go about our daily lives and function. As Dalit said, we want peace with justice, and the way that Palestinians want to do this is through the BDS movement. It's a nonviolent form of resistance. Everyone has access to do a nonviolent form of resistance, and this is how we choose to do it. This is how we decide our future. We want a future with equal rights for Palestinians, for Israelis, for everyone. Thank you.
Hi, I just want to say, as an American Jew, I have also been detained at the Israeli border. And with any border, security is important for any country. It happens coming into the U.S., that happens in going into any country. I want to address the BDS movement's tokenization of Jewish people. Today you have heard, may hear, from a number of individuals who identify themselves as Jewish supporters of this divestment resolution and the anti-Israel boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement in general. These individuals have every right to voice their opinions. That being said, they have no right to speak for the wider Jewish community on this issue. They have no right to claim that BDS against Israel represents our Jewish community. Recent polls have shown that only 4% of American Jews strongly support BDS and divestment against Israel. In addition, 90% of American Jews believe that recognition of Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state is necessary, and 94% consider it a strategy if Israel no longer existed tomorrow. This is in stark contrast to BDS, which seeks the elimination of Israel and its Jewish population. Our Jewish community is overwhelmingly opposed to the BDS agenda, and the fact that a small minority does not feel attacked by BDS changes nothing about its negative impact on the rest of our community. I would also like to point out that in social justice, it is the right of the minority to define what hatred is towards them. Jews are seemingly the only group held to a different standard. Jews have been systematically denied that right time and time again. The vast majority of the Jewish community has defined the BDS movement as an attack on them and their values, and it is demeaning to say we do not have that right like all other minorities do. Just as a tiny group of women once opposed equal rights votes in America, there's a tiny group of Jews who oppose the existence of Israel and the Jewish soul.
Wael, W-A-E-L?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name is Wael Sadi. I'm a Palestinian student here at PSU,
And I just want to begin by thanking ASPSU. There's been now several important resolutions that have been brought before this body, which have opened up really important question and a forum for students on what type of university we actually want to be a part of, from talking about police brutality to racist private prisons to how we can stop and reverse the devastating effects of climate change. Today, we're talking about whether we think our university should be invested in the oppression of Palestinians and the violations of their human rights. My grandparents were forced from their homes in 1948, along with 750,000 Palestinians. But the oppression of Palestinians continues today. Their land continues to be occupied, and they're systemically discriminated against. Israel's built a wall inside of Palestine that is 20 times the size of the Berlin Wall and twice its height. This wall, along with hundreds of checkpoints, restricts Palestinian freedom of movement to the point that Palestinian mothers frequently have to give birth at checkpoints because they're not allowed through. And just in the last 2 years, nearly 2,000 Palestinian homes in the West Bank have been demolished. It's important for us to speak up because our government points out Israel for $3 billion of military aid every single year, and because our president at this university said he will increase it. So it is absolutely important for us as a campus to say we will not support the violation of Palestinian human rights and those companies that invest in it. The choice before you is simple. You have 4 companies. Look at the research. If they are implicated in these violations of the human rights, it is our responsibility to take a stand, and yes, take a stand for Palestinian human rights specifically. Frederick Douglass said, you can't have progress without struggle. You cannot be for peace while opposing actions that can bring justice to the Palestinian people. It's in our hands to be able to do something about that.
Hi, my name is Brendan Dorff, and I'm the co-president of CRI, as well as a member of the Jewish Student Union. The following are statements made by leaders and activists in the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel, the movement that this resolution is based on, and the movement that will benefit most directly if you vote yes. We oppose a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. Omar Barghouti, co-founder of the BDS movement, and speaker brought to PSU last year by Super, the same student group behind this resolution. Israeli Jews are colonial settlers, and I make this distinction between self-determination for Jewish settlers in Palestine, which I categorically oppose, because colonizers are not entitled to self-determination, also by Omar Barghouti. BDS does mean the end of the Jewish state. Ahmed Moore, BDS leader. The real aim of BDS is to bring down the state of Israel. Justice and freedom for Palestinians are incompatible with the existence of the state of Israel. Assad Abu Khalil, leading BDS activist. BDS represents 3 words that will help bring the defeat of Zionist Israel and victory for Palestine. Ronnie Castles, South African BDS leader. Shoot the Jew. Championed by BDS protesters in South Africa and defended by South African BDS organizers Mohammed Desai, keynote speaker at the SGP National Conference in 2014. Let these quotes sink in and remember them. Understand that the main effect of passing this resolution will be to promote bigotry and hate that these statements represent. Do you really want to be part of a movement that dehumanizes and erases the history and undermines the rights of the Jewish people by characterizing them as colonizers in their own homeland? Know that regardless of our good intentions, our voices will be appropriated and used to promote this malicious agenda if divestment passes. Contributing to BDS in any way, shape, or form can only undermine the cause of peace, justice, and human rights in the Middle East. I believe we must look beyond the rhetoric and consider the real impact of passing this resolution. Opposing divestment isn't about opposing Palestinian rights. It's simply about acknowledging that Palestinians can have dignity, justice, and human rights without degrading Israeli human rights, and making the Jews a stateless people once again. This resolution would benefit one group at the expense of another group's rights, and that's why it is fundamentally an unjust cause. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mohammed, and I am resident in Portland here. And I lived most of my life in the Gaza Strip, which I was born. And according to my dad, I was supposed to be born in Jaffa, but all of our family has been displaced in 1948 by the state of Israel. When I lived in Gaza, I was completely attacked by these 4 companies. How? Okay. My dad cousin had a house in 2003. He has a child. He was 4 months at that time. His house was destroyed by a caterpillar at that time. Now, the same child is 13 years old. He still does not have a home. My uncle was in a very extreme need in 2014 to have a open heart surgery in Israel. The Israeli forces has denied his entry to have his surgery. Due to that, he did the surgery in Gaza and he has been killed because of that. Because of the lack of electricity, because of all of these things that has been enforced by the occupation, supported by these 4 companies. Caterpillar and G4S and all of these and Motorola Solutions and Hewlett Packard was supporting and still till now supporting this ongoing siege in Gaza that makes it the biggest open air prison in the world. You're talking about 1.8 million people who live there, and still the average 30 years old person has never left Gaza. You're talking about this thing, and this is why all the Gazans, most of them, and most of the Palestinians, asking you to want your money to be invested in this prison. Do you want another 50 years old in 2025 to not have a house?
And facts and figures which do not create an inherently biased debate. We have been repeatedly told that this is about human rights and the 4 companies, and we would like to see that reflected in the wording of the resolution. Instead, this movement co-opts the language of human rights and social justice while it seeks to deny human rights and social justice to one of the most historically oppressed minorities in the world. Therefore, included in this resolution must also be clauses specifically distancing this resolution from the global BDS movement and affirming that Jews, like every other minority on the face of this planet, have the right to self-determination, and to infringe on that right is bigotry. I agree that we, as college students, have the power to make a difference, and I agree that I believe that we can do our part in solving this conflict by sowing the seeds of peace at the university level. I believe that if we reach an understanding among ourselves, we can carry it far beyond campus, and we urge you to change the wording of this resolution and make it about human rights and not about denying rights to certain people. Thank you.
Maya?
My name is Maya. I'm a Jewish Israeli. I was born and raised in West Jerusalem. Like most of the people who spoke to you today from my opposition, I was brought up believing everything that they told you about Israel. I was brought up believing that we lived in the only democracy in the Middle East and that we had the most moral army in the world. Only in my 20s
when I, by a chain of events, found myself in East Jerusalem, did I realize that everything that I was brought up believing was true. Only if you were lucky enough, like me, to be born Jewish in Israel. As I watched human rights and international law be broken and abused in East Jerusalem, it was clear to me that there was a great difference between what Israel was saying and what Israel was doing, and the facts that it creates on the ground are ones that no human should stand by and let happen. I wish that I could speak with you more about East Jerusalem, but I only have 50 seconds left, and so instead I want to leave you with just these 2 points. Somebody here said that human rights violations happen everywhere in the world, and you're right, they do. But Israel is the only place that has been holding millions of citizens under military rule for decades. Israel is also the only country that receives $3.5 billion from the U.S. every year. We, as American citizens and residents, as people who live here, are linked to what is happening in Israel in a way that we are not linked to any of the other catastrophes happening in the world today. I was a member of an Israeli Jewish group called Boycott from Within before leaving Israel. It's a group of Jewish Israelis calling for boycott. The Coalition of Women for Peace, an Israeli-Palestinian organization in Israel, has joined the call for boycott. It is not coincidental. The Jewish Voice for Peace is the largest growing Jewish organization in the U.S. Help us save us from ourselves. Thank you.
I have only 2 names remaining on the support side. Did you wish to yield your time, or did you want to speak? I've got Alyssa Pagan and Alex Wise.
Speak.
Speak. All right. Alyssa Pagan?
Alyssa Pagan.
I apologize.
So I'm a member of the Portland State University Student Union, and we have already endorsed this, and we stand in solidarity with the Students United for Palestinian Equal Rights, and we stand in solidarity with the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement. And for those of you who are on your laptops, I would just say that if you just look up any video about the conditions that people in Palestine have to endure, I would suggest that you just do a quick Google search and take a look. So the Portland State University Student Union has not always been unapologetically and steadfastly with super. That was a process. And one of the ways that we came to the decision was because we looked at the United Nations, no bastion of progressivism in the world, but like many other aspects of our lives that we can look at and say, look at things like the prison industrial complex in this country versus other countries in the world that look at the United States and say, how could it possibly be that the United States thinks that it's acceptable to be imprisoning such a large percentage of people in their country? That there is actually an argument about whether climate change is real or not is something that people look at the United States and look at and say, how could they possibly be entertaining this argument in the United States? Well, like these things, the idea that it is acceptable to support the occupation of people and companies that benefit from it is something that the UN has spoken on. The world is moving on. And the idea that this is an open argument that should be entertained is losing its traction all around the world. So I want this body to consider that too. This is not some radical idea being put forth by the loud, mean Portland State University Student Union and Alyssa Pagan at home.
Hi, I'm a Jewish student at Portland State, and I'd like to first say one thing. I'm proud to be Jewish, and I'm nobody's token. I'm nobody's token, and the Jewish community has always been divided. We're divided now. We were divided over whether boycotting South Africa when it was apartheid was the right thing to do. We were divided during the civil rights movement when the end of Jim Crow and America's apartheid was or not the end, but a lot of fighting against it. We were divided then, and we were even divided whether boycotting German goods during the 1930s was the right thing to do. Jewish self-determination need never come at the expense of human rights. And I trust that this body will make the right decision. Thank you.
All right, we've exhausted the list. Unless there are any public comment. ASPSU took no action, so that would move the resolution to a second reading at the next meeting. Unless there's an objection, I'm willing to entertain an additional 10 minutes of discussion within the body. I don't advise it, but if there is an objection to proceeding to the next item, we will entertain 10 minutes. Is there any objection to proceeding to the next item?
Objection.
So like, it is your wish that we entertain an additional 10 minutes?
To discuss this matter and
Yes.
continue voting? Or to vote?
Well, it's not ready for a vote yet. It has to come back for a second. But a motion could be made to, for instance, send it back to committee, but lacking any motion, it will come back for a second reading at the next meeting. Did you still wish to object? Would you like to have more time to discuss at this meeting?
I think you misunderstood.
I do.
Yeah, okay. So is there any objection to proceeding to the next item?
I would like to.
All right, so we will have 10 minutes. I'll take a speaker's list. I've got the meeting done. Anybody else?
I just have a question.
Okay. Is that a question I can answer now? Okay. Anybody else? Donna, David, and Anna are all out. All right, I'm going to close the speaker's list. David? No, not 10. You get 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you first to the audience. Thank you for both parties to come in and have this conversation with us. I think a second reading would be helpful. I think we all have learned from both parties, and we can vote the best resolution that can defend human rights without being elimination or like damaging any community or state. So I think a second resolution would be very helpful for us to find the best way to look for other human beings that are on the other side of the world. And also, I think it's important to what people are saying. This called why is the poor companies are. Some people are saying, well, why don't you put all the human rights in the other countries? Well, there's a different why Israel is doing like other countries are doing against human rights. Like the people from Palestine say, where they living in Gaza or West Bank, it's like living in a jail. It's hundreds of people that live in there. And like it was pointed out, like last month, the USA was going to donate, I don't know what, billions or millions of dollars to the aid to the Israel military. And even if you are not a student, one of your taxes go there. So I think we should think about where our money is going. And again, this conversation was great. I think the best way to help other humans is by having international solidarity and a student voice. Movement can be loud, and we can write the best solution all together.
No?
So I feel like we're talking about human rights and about the companies themselves. I feel like when we talk about like tokenizing the Jewish people, talking about Israel and Jews, I feel like someone who's coming from the Middle East, there were Jews in Syria, there are Jews in Iran, there are Jews everywhere. So Israel decided to be a Jewish state. It's not like we're talking about Israel as a state violating human rights violations. And I think that should be, and as a Syrian myself, please, I would like people to actually be in opposition to like my state. I feel like talking about a state, and as an American as well, I will not I will not be quiet about Americans' human rights violation in Iraq and in Syria and in other places and obviously in supporting military in Israel. I feel like states and people are not the same thing. And I, as a minority, and I spoke with Kai, and I actually this reading was extended until the Senate meeting because they're observing this Passover. And as a minority who like understand how important these issues is discussed, I wanted them to have the time to like enjoy their Passover because I would have hated for someone to do it during a holiday that I'm celebrating. So I will stand against you against anti-Semitism, but I feel like doing that, it was never harmful for people to talk about apartheid in South Africa. It was better for everyone. It was never harmful to talk about segregation in this country. Are we better or worse for like not having segregation in this country? I feel like holding accountability for human rights is the right thing to do anywhere, whether in any country. But then we know, as someone said, like talking about Israel and Palestine, because this is the only country that is defined in UN as an occupation. And when we talk about, when we talk about like, look at UN resolution in page 4, and then we can talk about like why is this country specifically, and how our money as American citizen and a PSU student shouldn't be going.
My only thing that I really want to hang on, Jessica, hang on. We'll get there. I swear, we'll get there. Okay. So, properly motioned and seconded. Emily, would you like to speak here?
I would. I think that since this resolution was presented by Super, we have that side, and I think we have a very legitimate reason presented by the Jewish voices that we've heard here today to go back and try and revise this to better represent the students that we've heard from today as a